Pop in, say hi. If you've never come into one of my lives before, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside. And I hope everybody is comfortable out there, that the weather is treating you well. I understand the smoke is bothering some of the northern states, right? And on behalf of Canada, I apologize. There really isn't anything we can do about it. We have to do our best to make sure that everybody is safe, do our darndest to get those darn fires out. And for the most part, it means water. And you know what happens when you put water on flames? There's a whole lot of smoke. And it really isn't. I appreciate that it's not good for the lungs and it's bothersome and it's summer and everybody's trying to enjoy their summer. But it isn't with intent, right? And I don't think any of my crew here would, look at what's going on in here in Canada with the forest fires as anything that is with intent. And, for the most part, we have to look at these things that really agitates our neighbors, our friends, our family, different countries, right? Hello, Owen. I saw President Trump do his live, what do they call it? For the world, that he's putting his foot down. And usually when he does these moments of importance online for the entire world to see, you know that he's serious. And it makes me anxious. I'm not gonna deny that it does make me anxious, but I also know that, once I got that information of what's going on, because at the very least I want to be informed, I have to let it go. Like, I just have to let it go. Because, if he's a little bit nervous about it, you know, and he's a tough cookie, that President Trump, isn't he? He's a tough cookie. And I give it to him. He's between a rock and a hard place. But I also understand, sometimes you gotta make a mess to clean a mess. And however this plays out, we're going to have to ride those waves, and it's either going to be some good news and a right one of these or one of these, because we've been able to make a new ally or allies, right? Or we are all going to be in the mix of it. And that's the truth. But at the same time, like I said, we gotta let it go, because Cindy the small man, Owen the small man, Andrew the small man, right? We don't have much of a say. That is power games, right? And we have to leave that in the hands of the power, because unless we can all get together as a majority, right? We have to just trust that everything is going to be okay, right? Everything is always going to be okay. And I say that, but I say that with a belief in what I'm saying, because I'm the experiencer in that. So many times in my life, I thought I was going to go down, down for the count, just to find myself maybe not on top of the pile, but at least my head above ground. And I can appreciate that. And sometimes when we step in that doo doo ourselves, we make those decisions where we get ourselves in those moments where we're looking for a little bit of help, we're looking for the out, right? if we just get a point in the right direction, that's something to be appreciated, right? And for the most part in my life, I've always gotten at the very least a little bit of a direction, maybe a little bit of advice. Sometimes it's just a little bit of good cheer that somebody sends my way and says, "You can do this. You can get yourself out of this. You got yourself in it. You can get yourself out of it." And that's the truth. Okay, you guys. How's everybody doing tonight? Owen, how are you doing in New York with all that smoke? I saw someone on Facebook who was in New York and said it smelled like a campfire. The air was like fog. It was like that here in Winnipeg a couple of years ago, a couple of days ago. It was pretty bad. Today and yesterday, no, not bad, not bad at all. And I suspect, that it's going to get a little bit worse. We here in Manitoba, Canada, if you don't know, I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba. And I suspect that with the rain that's coming in the next few days and Ontario being our neighbor, that it is going to be pretty cloudy, right? And depending on what direction that smoke is going to be blowing in, right? That's who's going to be struggling with it. So it can very well be coming our way here, coming west, or it could be going south or east. You just don't know, right? Because nature is something we just haven't got a handle on. They have no idea how this El Nino is going to play out this year. They know and expect it to be the very worst El Nino in recorded history. And in actuality, that one we had, it was in 1998, 99 was the last one, and it was supposedly the worst one so far. Now don't quote me on the dates on that, right? I'm not down packed with my dates, but whatever the last one was, that was the worst one that we had. And then they said the chances of this one being a super El Nino, a super El Nino, that it's going to be the very worst of all. They expect it to go right into January this year. So I'm going to expect a pretty mild winter here, which means lots of evening walks for myself, right? No 40 below 0 Celsius to deal with. And that's kind of nice in the moment. We are in the midst of a heat wave, but we're expecting it to cool right down for the next couple of days before we go back into it again. So I appreciate the breakups in the weather, right? July is usually consistently in the 30s, and we are metric here. So I suspect the 30s is pretty close to the low 90s in Fahrenheit, but with the humidex, it is in the hundreds. Unfortunately, it is in the hundreds. And I'm not one that takes to the heat very well. For the most part, I have been in tank tops and in my bra just because the heat is so oh, it's so much, right? But like I said, I'm not that person to be able to deal with the heat very well. But my body, in actuality, seems to be doing okay with that. It's like the third time in less than a week that my blood pressure has been normal, like normal, right? Well, I kind of zoned out today when I was getting my blood pressure. And I know when I zone out, I just naturally calm myself down, right? But in the same, it sure takes a big big relief off of me just to think that, that maybe taking iron pills is making a little, I'm optimistic, right? It's not like I'm reaching for lifelines or anything, but I would be pretty happy to find out that don't have to go on blood pressure medication. That would make me pretty happy, right? I haven't said I'm appreciative of my good health in a long time just because I'm I'm taking iron pills now, and I'm grateful for that it's not like medication or anything. But she just wants to see if that's going to make the difference. She doesn't want to put me on blood pressure pills if I don't need to, right? And, she's been putting me through the ringer with all the tests. She wants me at my new doctor. I got a new doctor. I thought it was time, right? For the past 20 years, I've been using walk in clinics, just going to see a doctor for my flu shots or just to see if there was something wrong, if I had the flu or something, but I don't go very often at all. And, it's my little bit of give back and not being on the medical system because, well, you have little old ladies who use it as social events, right? Where they don't get to go out very often, so they're just making appointments with doctors just so they can have a little visit. It happens, right? I guess I'm assuming that doesn't happen in the States too much, especially when you guys have to pay for these services. Here in Canada, they're free, and if not free, they're very inexpensive. Here in Manitoba, our medical is taken care of for us, right? But we pay high taxes and we contribute to the infrastructure, and we, I have to say, in our gambling, this is where the profits go. The government runs gambling here. I don't know in the states, but I'm going to assume in the states too, the gambling is run by the government. So our lottery and our gambling um, uh, access is all monitored, and it's all the profits. They go to sports, community services, and healthcare. So they're going to good use, right? They're going to really good projects. I think it really does help in a way, but gambling is such a big problem. Addiction is such a big problem. I have been in the topic pretty heavy for the past couple of weeks when it comes to addictions because I suspect that, as I move forward and because, you know, I have, well, your purpose comes from your pain. And, I was a gambling addict myself, that it's important for me to understand the ideas and the triggers and the know how and the how to's out of being better at not being an addictive personality. I don't think any of us who are easily addictive can really come out of that. I peel the addictions away. There was a time where I was addicted to three or four different things at one time, and like desperate things that were actually ruining my life, ruining my marriage, ruining my finances, ruining my mentality, my mindset, right? And so to be able to come out of it, right, with a little bit of hindsight and a little bit of knowledge and evidence and comfortability that, whoever that I'm helping out knows that I'm just not somebody talking off the top of my head. This is something that I've been dealing with for a good part of my life. And so much so that it has caused me so many issues. But again, being that evidence and that example for others that we can move past these things that get their hooks into us, right? These ideas that, we have to cope in a certain way in order to deal with one problem. We bring another problem into our lives just to take us away, right? To put us in happy land for a moment, right? Because as soon as that moment's gone, right, you come back to reality. You go, oh hell, what did I just do, right? Yeah, but that's smoke, you guys. Yeah, I was just saying that it's going to get pretty smoky. Um, and again, I can't imagine that the northern states aren't going to be affected by wildfires too. I know your season is just starting. Tammy, who won't be in tonight, she's doing some caregiving because I don't know why she's doing some caregiving, but I guess the couple that she caregives, who has an adult son who has developmental issues, they trust Tammy with their child, and maybe they needed, maybe a date night, or they had some plans or something. So they asked Tammy to take care of their son. So she's going to be doing that for a few days a week. But she messaged me to say that she wasn't going to be in tonight. Also, Kathy is on holidays. She sent me some pictures of her on holiday. She looks like she's having lots of fun, and yeah, it's pretty exciting. I'm pretty cautious, and I'm not getting my hopes up pretty high. They are evacuating Thunder Bay. Uh, there's so many fires going on, dangerous, dangerous fires. Whole communities are being evacuated. Here in Manitoba, too, we are having some serious, serious problems with the forest fires. And that's something that's going to be going on. I mean, we're still really early into summer, and I don't think these forest fires that we're really going to be able to get a handle on them until probably the end of August at the very earliest, right? Summer is going to be long and hot, and if there isn't a lot of rain, right, and a lot of cool weather, and it's possible, right? And El Nino isn't 100%. It's going to be heat waves. El Nino just means crazy town when it comes to the weather, right? So there could be thunderstorms and lightning and tornadoes and, right, all kinds of crazy weather, but it doesn't mean that it's just going to be heat waves all through the summer. But again, we don't have control over mother nature, right? We are pretty smart cookies as humans in this moment when it comes to technology, and the engineering and the science and the medicine. But you got to think it's pretty curious, right, that we don't have control. We can't even predict it on a good day, even without El Nino going on. We can't predict the weather, right? And it can be a little bit discouraging because we're in cottage country right here in Manitoba and Ontario and Quebec. We're cottage country. We like to go to the cottage. We like to go camping. We like to do a lot of outdoor stuff in the summertime because we're so locked up in the winter. Who wants to go outside besides Sydney, right? When there's 6 feet of snow and it's 40 below zero without the wind chill, right? Not a lot of people do. So we get a little bit, what do you call that? House cooped in. We get a little bit cooped in. And so when spring and summer comes, we get pretty excited about it. But we pay attention to the Weather Channel. And if the Weather Channel says storms and rain and miserable, right, then we cancel our plans and we cancel our campsites, and our reservations and our outings and stuff, just to find out that the rain didn't come, that it was actually beautiful days after all. And that's usually the case because all week I have been waiting for rain and thunderstorms, right? The Weather Channel said they were happening, and it spit yesterday for about not even 5 minutes, not even enough to get the sidewalk wet looking. And then that was the end of it. And I see the disappointment in me. I love the storms. I really do love heavy rain. And like I said, I'm not big on the super hot weather. So I appreciate that when the rain comes, it starts to cool down a little bit. But I hope you guys have a cool um, week coming up. Uh, we get a couple of days here, 3 days where it's under 30 degrees, but it'll be in higher in the 20s on the third day. But under 30, I'm good with that too. Maybe I'll go for a bike ride. If it really cools down, that I'll be able to get out and go for a bike ride and check out the library. Actually went and checked out the library downstairs. I live in a 200 suite apartment block, but there's a lot of seniors in this building and a lot of vulnerable people who live in this building. And they have a community. They have actually, yeah, they have a community center on the main floor. They have a library where people donate books, and there's just like walls and walls of books. So I was in there today looking out all the books to see if I could find a book to read. I didn't find anything. I was on my way to the store. And then on the second floor, we have a gym room where they have a room and it's full of machinery so we can exercise. I never use, a couple of times I went in there to look at puzzles, and that's the same room that they have all these exercise machines on. I'm not a big puzzle person, but I went in to take a look at the puzzles. And they have shuffleboard down there. They have pool tables and ping pong tables and right, just tables so people can have family over if they want to have like birthday parties and stuff like that. Most of the community centers on the main floor, so that's where they'll have their events, right? And they have bingo night, and they're always telling me to come down and join them on bingo night. But I don't gamble, right? I don't even do lottery tickets. So for the most part, I say thank you for the invite, but no, I don't think so. And then right, I'm always trying to pass that information across that I don't gamble anymore, right? Because it is something to be proud of when you can overcome a limitation in an addiction, right? So I believe that if you've overcome something in addiction, like if you were a drinker or shopper or cleanophobic, whatever that addiction, anything that's a habit that drives you crazy and interferes with your life, that's an addiction. And if you can overcome that, I think that the fact that, you get what you give in life, and I believe that to be true. I've seen it in my own life, and I've seen it in my family's life happening within my own family. That idea, if you just pass that along, that story along, that information along as the example that it can be done, you never know who you can help, right? So I always tell the people that I used to be a gambler and I lost my marriage, lost all my beautiful furniture, lost my home, almost ended up homeless, right? But yeah, but I believe that you get what you give in this life. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it comes back in this life. I've bumped into people that I believe that I've known in other times, right? Meaning not in this life. And I know it might seem kind of off in that. But I believe that to be true. And I've seen in their own life because I've known them in past lives that, right? what they gave in that life, they got in their life. And what they wanted in their life, right, and just didn't receive in this lifetime, they got in their next lifetime. And I've seen that, right? And maybe nobody might believe it to be true, but I believe that to be true. And it's part of the reason why I believe you get what you give in life. Okay, let me come into the comments here. And Andrew says, I'm glad you had some relief just seeing it was terrible. Yeah. The smoke is. I went outside the other day and I knew the fires were going on in Ontario, but we are big provinces. Like, even though we are right next door to Ontario, it takes me a whole day to drive there, right? It takes me a whole day almost to drive to Ontario from one end to the province to the other end of the province. That's like an 8-hour drive. You could fit two or three states in a province. If you look at the maps of Canada, our provinces are pretty huge, right? Just take a look at the Northwest or Nunavut, right? Take a look and just a massive piece of land, and we have so much wilderness still out there, right? And every once in a while the government lets a little bit of it go for whether it's industrial or forestry, or for the public to build homes on, or farms, or agricultural, right? But for the most part, right, it's still crown land. Funny to say it's still crown land, because technically Canada still belongs to Great Britain. Isn't that pretty? The king owns Canada, right? Not technically, because he's all ruled himself by, I don't know, the house, right? But just to think, that they should just give it back to us, right? Because we are our own country. We are our own country, and we rule it as Canadians. We don't ruin them as Brits, even though we've got the Queen on all our coins and stuff, right? Right? They still call it Crown Land. But it is what it is. And things are always changing, aren't they? Things are always changing. They gave back all the Hudson Bay, I'm not going to say paraphernalia, but, personal items and all the history of the Hudson Bay. They gave it all back to Canada, right? And it's part of our history, because those were the voyageurs. Those were the first people who settled this country, well, this continent, right? Because the fur traders came into the States too, right? Yeah. Okay, we wiped out all the buffalo, didn't we? We did a terrible job, but we're doing a really good job at bringing the buffalo back. We're doing a really, really good job at that. But yeah, hopefully that rain that we're going to get here in the, well, it says we got about 2 days of rain. Tomorrow's going to be a little bit sporadic. I'm not excited. I expect that rain forecast is going to be eliminated within like half an hour of when it's due, and I've got my nose pressed to the window waiting for it to come, right? So I'm not super excited about that. But the next day, it's supposed to be raining off and on all day and all evening. So we'll see about that. And actually, my rain here is supposed to start at 8 o'clock tonight. And yeah, I don't even see the clouds happening. I don't even see the clouds happening yet. So again, right? Mother Nature is the one thing we still don't have control over. But I'm staying in, right? For the most part, the past couple of days, I've stayed in my apartment. I haven't really done any housework, no laundry or anything. I just figured if we're going to get a couple of cool days, right? For the next couple of days, it's going to cool right down. That those would probably be the good days for me to do laundry where I'm not hanging out in laundry rooms where it's over 100 in Fahrenheit, right? Yeah, those laundry rooms get pretty hot here. Okay, you guys. Topic of discussion tonight. We're hanging out on our own tonight, a small crew tonight, you guys, eh? I sent you a card, Andrew. It's from the whole crew here, and with a little letter. Uh, I sent it a couple of days ago, so I'm optimistic that it won't take too long to get to you. Have you heard anything yet about your appointment as to when you're going to be going in for your operation? I'm rooting you on there, Andrew. I have to say, I am excited because it's a successful, it's not a failed operation. Nobody likes doctors and hospitals and being laid up, right? But you're going to feel so good. And just the idea that you're not going to have any pain anymore, right? Maybe a little bit in the hip, unless you decide to have the hip done too. But if you can manage the hip, and you might even find once the knees are done that your hip is going to feel a whole lot better too, right? Uh, Cindy, I have a book you might be interested in. The Power of Less, The Fine Art of Limiting Yourself to the Essential in Business and in Life by Leo Babata. I'm gonna write his name down there. I might be able to pull the book up online, Andrew, and be able to read it. And then you wouldn't have to send me the book. AUTA, The Power of Less. Thank you for letting me know that one, Andrew. I appreciate that. Right? I love the motivation, the inspiration, right? I really do love that content. I was in quite a bit of it today in between what was going on with the president and other things, right? There's a gentleman that I watch. What's his name? Stephen something. I watch him because the earthquakes and stuff have been increasing lately all over the world, and he hangs out in the topics of, I think, a little bit of astrology because he loves the planets, and he especially loves the sun, and he watches the sunbursts and stuff, so he lets us know when these sunbursts are going to reach earth, and because it interferes with the satellites, and he watches the what's going on with meteors and stuff. But for the most part, he's dedicated in letting us know what's going on with the plates and when it comes to earthquakes. So if there's an earthquake or something going on, it doesn't matter what he's doing, right? He stops everything and he just comes online immediately. And he does his research and stuff as he's online with his following. And I think that's pretty beautiful because I know a lot of people, they go into panic mode and they get really worried because, the entire west coast of North America has numerous plates that are constantly shifting, and they're constantly waiting for the big ones to hit because they are due, right? and I wish I knew his name. Let me just come here and see if he's online right now. I guess I could look at my subscriptions, and he's he's pretty smart if you wanted to subscribe to him, because then you would get a notification if there was an earthquake or something. And uh, um, yeah, well, if you're interested, just, oh, here they are. Show more. I think his name is Stefan. So let's just take a look here and see. I keep cutting back the channels that I'm subscribed to. Hello, William. I keep cutting back on the channels that I'm subscribing to, but every once in a while I pick up a few more. Uh, it was only a couple of months ago that I went in and come on, Stephen Burns. Let me just take a look at this gentleman. Yes, his name is Stephen Burns. Stefan Burns. He's super smart. He really is super smart. I don't know. I trust his content, but I've never actually checked out his credentials here. Let me just check out his credentials for you guys. Um, I cover solar activity, space, weather, planetary alignments, and geophysical energetic events. So we all may be better understand the quality of the energies of the solar system and the earth. He is super smart. And like I said, if there's anything going on major when it comes to the physicality of Earth, or something that the sun is going through or the moon is going through, I'm not sure. I don't think I've ever seen him go too far into space, except into the planets and meteors, right? But he doesn't do like spaceships and Elon Musk or anything like that, right? But the physicality of the world that we live in. And if you wanted to stay updated in what was going on in that, like I said, if something's going on, it could be in the middle of the night. He'll get a notification and he'll get out of bed and he'll go live and he'll just be with his followers, right? And that's comforting, I think, for a lot of people who do live in like the West Coast, where there are so many plates and there's so many, earthquakes and stuff going on. And he's very knowledgeable and he delves in deep. Like he's like a pit bull with a piece of raw meat in his mouth. So he'll get that information for you. Not only will he get that information for you, he'll be in his comments like I'm in the comments, and he'll answer questions, right? And if you are that person who's a little bit anxious in what's going on, he's a wonderful, right? I follow some pretty amazing things, but in find looking for him, I'm all proud of myself that I remembered his name, right? But but looking for his name, I noticed there's a lot of content creators that I can let go in my subscriptions, because we're always changing, aren't we? You know, what interested us one moment is not going to interest us the next. That's why I'm so surprised and so grateful, but I'm so surprised that you guys have been with me for so many years, that you guys didn't move on, right? You guys just, oh, I've had enough, Cindy. And then just slowly disappear. You guys have never done that. You've been with me for like over 10 years and like you're still here with me consistently too, right? Yeah, it makes me feel, right? Really, I don't know, welcomed. Makes me feel, I don't know, special maybe, right? That you guys appreciate me, that you guys appreciate that little bit of get together that we do every Sunday night. Tammy, when she messaged me tonight to say, I told her I would be happy to give her my email address. My email address is right down below, right? That, she could email me and she hasn't done that, right? So but she finds a video and she'll comment on a old video or something of mine and I'll get a notification and then I know that it's her. So that's how come I knew that she wasn't going to be in tonight, right? That she wasn't going to be in our live chat tonight. And so but what was I going to say about Tammy? I don't know. I've forgotten already. I was going to say something. I thought it might be pertinent to the conversation, but but yeah, if you guys ever felt that you guys wanted to chit chat with me or you wanted to do a Zoom call, I don't know if you guys have Zoom, but if you guys want to come in, I need to practice on my Zoom, right? To make sure that I can run things nice and smoothly and being able to have these kind of conversations and in these topics that I talk about sometimes they get pretty heavy sometimes. I understand that, but I can't stop being myself and I know I clamp down quite a bit because there are lots of topics that I don't touch on because I don't think the space that I'm in is appropriate for these conversations. But I'm very open and I'm very, I don't know, expanded in my interests. And it's important for me because I do believe it takes all kinds to make the world. So it's important for me to be able to find little commonalities with people in the conversations that I have. And it's not just out of the sake of being able to have conversations with people. I'm actually curious, right? I am interested. I love to learn things and what makes people tick, what people appreciate in life. And lots of my interests, like my true interests, have rubbed off on me because they were interests of other people. My father loved metal detecting, right? And he loved hanging out in Mother Nature. And so I picked that up off of my father. Mind you, his appreciation for Mother Nature was a little bit, well, probably a lot different from mine because my dad loved the ocean. He loved the water. I love the water, but it's got to be the lake water because I don't like sharks, right? That movie Jaws ruined it for me. But also, my dad loved to hunt and I'm kind of off put a little bit by animals, you know, being killed, and you know, right? It is a way of life, and if it comes to the point where we have to fend for ourselves, I've got slingshots. I'm going to be the first ones out in there going wabbits, right? I'll be the first one. Right? I need to get a bag of marbles. I think marbles would be the best way to take out rabbits, right? But I don't like to see animals animals hurt in any way. But my father loved hunting. He used to take me grouse hunting all the time, deer hunting all the time, right? Lots of times he'd say we're going bear hunting, but I knew we were just going deer hunting because that's all we ever found. but his appreciation again was a little bit different. He liked the trails too, but if he could be out fishing, he would much rather be doing that. But I also remember also my dad had congenital heart failure, so being out on the trails would have been a little bit more strenuous for him, right? Than being out. I don't know. I could say it could be a little bit more strenuous for him because he was like the deadliest catch. He was out in the ocean. He'd go for months at a time, out in the middle of storms, out in the middle of the ocean. Lots of times he'd come back with stories of the boat being tipped right upside down and then popping upright again. Like that would be, oh my goodness, I can't even imagine that. My dad actually got thrown off the boat when he was salmon fishing on the Fraser River one time, and he survived for like 6 hours holding on to a log in whitewater. And he watched my uncle, because he was partnered with my uncle, drive drive that boat up and down the river numerous times, but nobody could see my father because the whitewater just covered him. You couldn't see anything. Finally, my uncle said, "Oh my goodness, I got to go back to town, right?" And let my mom know that my dad got lost in the river, and it was just a fluke on his way back to town that he saw my father clinging to a log, right? Like lots of times, my dad would tell me these stories, and I would just be like, "Oh my goodness!" And you're supposed to be taking it easy, but he loved life so much. He wasn't going to let his health condition stop him. And in the end, it really didn't, because he wasn't supposed to live to be much further into his 20s, right? And yet he lived to be 47 years old. And it was only in the last 10 years of his life that he had to give up fishing. And yeah, the government shut him down, took his driver's license away, and so he couldn't even drive cab, because in between seasons he would drive his cab. But getting back to this idea, lots of my interests, right, came to me through the interests of other people. Actually, my love for bottle digging, and you guys know I love bottle digging, right? Uh, Kathy got me on to that hobby, right? And at first, I just thought, it would be good for adding content to my channel when I couldn't get out on the back roads to go looking for old abandoned farms and abandoned houses and schools and churches and stuff, right? And so I started bottle digging, and I loved it so much. I still bottle dig to this day, right? And then there was mudlarking. Well, that was inspired by a couple of mudlarkers, right? There was a lady in England who mudlarked on the River Thames, and I forget her name. I apologize. And I watch her videos and go, "Oh my goodness, I could do that." And I would go down to the riverbank and I would mudlark on the riverbank, and that was so much fun, especially when I'd find like bone buttons and and all kinds of glass buttons, milk glass buttons, and old ice skates, because in the wintertime the river freezes, right? And then, people leave their skates behind, or they get into the snow and they can't find their skates. When spring comes, they would just sink to the bottom of the river and eventually wash up onto shore, and to find all these antique antique ice skates and stuff, right? And I don't know what got me interested. I think it was just my curiosity with the urban exploring, you know, when I would go off, because that's one of the things that I got addicted to, right? Was to go off on my own. It's what calmed my system down. And as soon as I got my first reliable new vehicle, that was it. I was gone. And it was fabulous just to be going off for these drives on my days off from a hard week at work, or right, the bad situations I was getting myself in with the gambling stuff, and just to calm my system down. I would just go off by myself for drives. And when I went off for drives, I'd come across these buildings, and then I would just walk through farm fields and walk through the buildings, and I found them so interesting. And I would stop and wonder about the families who lived in these old abandoned farms. And then I would go into the barns, and I would see all horse gear and old animal pens and stuff, and the way the barns were made. And I would just find it so curious and so interesting. And then, when I was looking, how can I be a content creator on YouTube? What could I bring to the table? Well, it was a no brainer because I was already urban exploring. And when I Googled urban explorers, right, and discovered, right, they were doing mansions and castles and old southern homes and stuff, plantations. But, I was doing something a little bit different. I was doing the farms and the old homesteads, the first settlers, right? Their log houses, the one room school houses, and the churches, the old churches. And nobody else was doing those at the time. I was the only one doing them, and my channel started taking off, and I was having so much fun. But when I couldn't get back out on the back roads, or I was running low on abandons, I had to bring something else onto the channel, right? And that's when I started doing the bushcraft videos. And then I was doing safety videos. And then what else was I would do? Well, then I added the camping, right? The provincial park videos, because because I'm a Google girl on Google Maps, right? That I would be a Google guide, and I would do reviews, and I would upload my landscape photos to Instagram and stuff. That it was just a matter of keeping my channel going. Eventually, I started exploring the inside too. I explore the inside and the outside. And, and if that all got shut down, I would just add something else, because exploring the inside and the outside, I could always add something into that onto that plate. Oh, my walk with me, Cindy Jeans, when I would do the trails, right? Yeah, looking forward. I don't know what's going to happen in September, you guys, with going camping this year. It's probably, I'm looking at a good 75% chance that my trip is not going to happen this year, partly because of the forest fires going on, especially a lot of those campsites that I visit, and my where I go digging for amethyst. Oh, I dig crystals too. Digging crystals was something that I stumbled onto myself when I first started waking up to some of these ideas. And I loved the sparklies and the story, and how old they were. It was part of exploring the outdoors. And plus, you guys know I love history, and it's part of history because they're like millions of years old, and I have tons of crystals, right? I have, oh, beautiful. I dug that one up. That's a piece of smoky quartz. Get up close so you can see the little crystals and points and stuff on it. Yeah, and I got that. I dug that one up in Thunder Bay. This one too, my dragon crystal, you guys. Right? Look how beautiful that is. It's just purple. It's just a honking piece of amethyst, right? And it's got my dragon on it, and seeing the dragon tail on the back. The tail comes up in the back too. Yeah, it's my favorite crystal. Whenever I go my trips, this crystal always comes with me, and always take landscape photos of different sites that I'm in, and always take a picture of my crystal. You see these people every once in a while, they'll take a lawn ornament with them, or a flamingo, or one of those little elves from the gardens. And then when they go on these trips, right, and they go traveling and stuff, they always stick their gnomes. Yeah, they'll stick their gnomes up somewheres, and they'll take a landscape photo. And they take these things with them, right? So I says, well, I'm going to take my crystal with me too when I go on my trips, right? Yeah, I love the crystals too. I'm a curious person. I have lots of interests, lots of hobbies, right? I have the work that I do for myself that eventually is going to be the work for others, right? And also, I have those interests and those hobbies that are personal to me, right? And everybody should have those. It also helps me from becoming addictive in things that are not healthy for me. Mm, my juice. Mm. Okay. I saw England is having a heat wave dry spell from above the old design or layout of the garden at Chatworth Country Mansion can now be clearly seen, and it matches an old engraving of the site. Oh my goodness. Yeah, super, super hot in Europe. I know Portugal and Spain are struggling with forest fires right now. They struggle lots. I was actually yesterday looking at videos of, because they used to build their homes right in the caves of the mountains, right? And that was to keep their homes warm in the winter and very cool in the summer. Now, as we, and it got my brain going, I was thinking, oh my goodness, if I ever got super rich, I would be buying myself a cave home. So I went into the listings to see what was being offered in cave homes in Spain and Portugal. And oh my goodness, they're so beautiful. You can't even tell that they're built into the side of the mountain. I thought like if they were like caves in like home caves that they would have water leaking through the roof because you know how there's always leaky. I watch Adventure Twins and they're cavers, right? And there's water absolutely everywhere. And I did see one other cave home in the States, and his house, they had like little pools of water all over his house, right? Just because it drips out of the ceiling constantly. But that's what I expected, but it's not the case, right? They're quite efficient homes, and some of these homes are very, very old, but they're built into the mountains. And I thought, oh well, that's pretty cool. I'd love to have, right, that opportunity to have a piece of property that had a cave home in it, just in case somewhere's down the road that it would be something that I could just pass down from one generation to the next generation, because we know eventually with global warming, and we're just starting in global warming. It has nothing to do with what's going on with El Nino, right? But with global warming, eventually it's going to get so unbearable that we might not be able to go outside for thousands of years, right? That we'd have to live in communities. Like I know there's places in like Syria and Turkey where they actually build cities under the ground for tens of thousands of people, like big cities, and they build them under the ground. And I thought, oh my goodness, like these things take hundreds of years to build, number one. But to have whole communities live down there. For the most part, they said that these communities, because in those places it's very hot, naturally it's hot in those places, that it was a very comfortable place temperature wise to live in. But the real reason why they lived in those underground cities was for safety because they were just warring all the time, right? For thousands of years, like, to live in that mindset of terror and trauma just from one generation to the next generation, that your actual life was in danger from the moment you were born to the moment you passed away, right? But it was for the fear of war because it was always going on. Yeah. Hopefully, we're coming out of that. Hello, Eugene. I hope Eugene is doing good tonight. But yeah, that's brilliant. I love castles. I really do love the country mansions and the castles. My mother had an aunt. Her name was Aunt Dot. We'd see her once every few years. She'd come to Canada, but she was a lady in waiting to some aristocrat in Europe. And when this lady passed away, she gave a mansion or castle, some kind of estate. She gave that to was we called her Aunt Dot, but she wasn't my aunt. She was my mother's aunt, right? But she would come every once in a while to Canada to visit family, and she'd always take my mother out for lunch or come visit at the house for tea or something like that. And she had some paintings and stuff that were given to my mother as part of the inheritance when my aunt Dot passed away. And but that those paintings were never allowed to come to Canada because they were considered um, um, property of the crown, right? That they weren't allowed out of the country. So I don't know who got that estate. You know, Aunt Dot never had any children of her own, so I don't know who she passed that estate down to. But it was her property, and she could have given it to anybody that she wanted. But it must have been pretty magnificent because this artwork was worth, oh, she said she had millions of dollars worth of artwork in this estate that she got, right? But yeah, that's right. I love the castles and stuff. I have a friend, um, Ames. He's an urban explorer. I think he's from Belgium. I think he lives in Belgium right now. He lives in one of those space houses. They're big circles, and he lives in one of those houses. And he still does some urban exploring every once in a while. He's still posting. He's still posting online. He's madly in love with my niece, right? And he used to do some of the amazing castles. Like, he was probably one of the best urban explorers. Like, he was really good at what he did, but he had really bad scoliosis and he had really bad arthritis, and he had to take some serious medication for his pain. Eventually he had to give up, not totally, because every once in a while he's a stubborn old bird. He still goes off and he does some urban exploring. I know he posted recently just a couple of pictures. One was a church that he recently explored, an old abandoned church, and then he did a castle with another popular urban exploring in Europe. But I used to love his videos. His videos were so good, and he was so genuine. Like, he was so himself, right? And his videos got so many views, right? Yeah, I hope he's doing good. His channel was exploring in me. Yeah, he called himself AIM, right? Yeah, AIM, EIM, exploring in me. Yeah, but But nice to see you, Eugene. Thank you for popping in. We were just talking a little bit about the weather. We were talking about the weather today, but the weather is a topic of discussion these days, right? And it's good to be thinking about the extremes when it comes to weather because it keeps that top of mind so that maybe we can start looking for solutions now, right? Knowing that we don't have a good handle on um, forecasting what the weather's going to be like, but knowing that crazy town weather is going to get worse and worse and worse over the next hundreds, thousands of years, right? It's okay to look a little bit further in the future because it's going to be a hard and long process of finding solutions because that's our viability. That's our um, eliminating the idea that maybe we'll go extinct, right? That's our survival is to find solutions in right because just as fast as and I say just as fast but the process of global warming is going to take thousands and thousands and thousands of years till it gets to the point where it's totally uh, um, so destitute that there isn't going to be too many animals that are going to be able to survive that. Even the polar bears now are adapting to the fact that the Hudson Bay is not freezing solid over the course of the winter. It's all broken up, right? And so they're adapting and conquering, and the polar bears are now mating with the grizzly bears. That's a dangerous combination because the grizzly bears are all over North America, right? The polar bears, they stay up north where the temperature is super cool, that they could be, right, the king of the land, right? But but now that they're mating with the grizzly bears, you're going to see these hybrids are going to be migrating south in North America. They'll pretty soon, right, be able. Like I know even here in Manitoba that they are here. The hybrid polar bear and grizzly bear hybrids. They're here already, and they've actually shot some already, and so they know for sure because they've done uh, tests on their blood, DNA tests and stuff, so they know that they are now a new species, right? Yeah, it's interesting, but it's kind of at the same time nervous to even think about it because usually when you hear about bears attacking humans, it's usually the grizzly bears that have the gumption to do these kind of things, right? Yeah, yeah. I was sipping my juice, but thank you for suggesting that book, Andrew. I'll be uh, I'll be checking that out after my live show tonight. See if I can pull it up pull it up online. Yeah, keep an eye open for the card. I mean, I know you have a mailbox number, so I'm assuming that you have to go off to get your mail. Your mail doesn't come to your actual home, but yeah, I thought it was. I saw it and I went, oh, that's the perfect card for our Andrew, right? Yeah. And let me know, you guys, right, when things aren't going good for you because, I want to appreciate, you guys are so wonderful at remembering me every Sunday night and coming to hang out with me. Like, I want to be, you know, kept up to date when things are going on with you guys that, when I notice that Owen's not here or Eugene. I haven't heard from Eugene in a while, right? And I haven't heard from Andrew in a while, which doesn't happen, right? I always hear from you guys, but it makes me nervous, right? It makes me nervous. Like every once in a while, Melvin disappears for a couple of months, right? Then he pops up again with his good cheer, and I go, "Oh my goodness, you made me nervous, Melvin." Right? Because you don't show up for a while. Go, oh my goodness, what happened to Melvin? Is he okay? Right? Did he get hurt? Did he get sick? Or did he just get sick as Cindy? Right? But then he pops in and lets us know that he's still alive and kicking, and I appreciate it. But I appreciate when you guys let me know too. How's your mom been doing, Owen? You haven't been talking to her, talking about her very much. And how's your sister doing too? You haven't talked about her lately too. Has she been by to visit at all? Give you a hand a little bit so you can have a little bit of a light for yourself too, Owen? Cindy, I have a book you might. Oh, I read that one already. And what's been going on with William? Um, come down here. That's correct. I go to the post office to get my mail. Some of it does get delivered to where I live, but most goes to the post office. And I guess you pay extra to have a mailbox, right? I always thought, well, maybe I should get a mailbox where people can just, right, send me letters and stuff. But most of you guys have my address, right? Because we do exchange cards and letters and stuff on occasion, right? Don't feel obligated, Andrew, to go out of your way to write me or anything, right? I appreciate that you send me those letters on occasion, but don't go out of your way. You got enough things going on in your life right now, so I hope that you just concentrate on what's going on with you right now. Oh, your brother came for a few days. Your mom's doing okay. She had been in rehab for 3 months after a fall, but she is home and okay. And did you do a little bit of R&R for yourself, Owen, while your mother was away? Or were you anxious? And you were probably visiting her almost every day if she was gone. Well, maybe not every day. It all depends on how far away she went to get the rehab. But I hope you got some R&R, a little bit of time for yourself to do some things that you appreciate doing, Owen. But it's nice. Oh, good. That's nice. But I never hear you mention your brother, Owen. I just assumed it was just you and your sister. I didn't know that you even had a brother. I'm trying to rack my brain up here right now. I don't even remember you mentioning a brother, Owen. So that's pretty cool. Do you only have one brother and one sister? Or do you have more brothers and sisters that I don't know of? I bet you your brother or your mother was so happy to see your brother too. I know you enjoy writing letters, Andrew. I know you enjoy writing them. You never did mention about your brother. Well, thank you for mentioning him, Owen. Yeah. Yeah, I had to write my. That would be pretty rude of me if you did talk about your brother, and I just like, but it just jogged in my brain. I says, I don't think Owen has ever mentioned that he even had a brother. I have one brother and one sister. And where do you stand in there, Owen? Are you the oldest of the family, of the kids? Are you the oldest? Yeah, that would be interesting to know. I know in my family, I'm the oldest of the four girls, right? I'm also probably the healthiest of the four girls in the moment. I understand it takes a moment and that could change at any moment. But everybody is always so amazed that I'm the oldest and we were actually I it was my sister's birthday. Um, we went over to her house on Tuesday this week, and it was my sister and my niece's birthday, so we had a little birthday party, and I went over and cleaned my sister's house and did some platters and stuff, and my sister Tracy hung up some balloons I blew up and stuff. And I only get to see my brother-in-law every once in a while. I get to see him at Christmas time and maybe a couple of birthdays during most of the birthdays in my family, they're in the summertime. I'm the only one that's in the fall, but most of them are in the summertime. My nieces and nephews, surprisingly, they're all in the wintertime, but for myself, I'm the only one that's outside of the summer. So I only get to see my brother-in-law Ian a couple of times a year, and we were just actually talking about how we stay healthy because he takes care of himself too. He likes to bike ride. He's an actor. He does movies. He works for an agency, and they're always calling him in to do. Uh, Mostly, he does mostly walk-in roles. He's had a couple of talking roles, but for the most part, he does the walking, and he's an extra, and he does that. And he finds it super interesting. But I was so surprised when he started doing the acting, when he started doing movies and stuff, because my brother in law is a very private person. Oh, you're the youngest, Owen. Oh, super interesting. That's super interesting. Well, next time you see your sister, you tell your sister that I said hi, right? Yeah. Yeah. That's and and if anything goes on with you, Owen, or your family, like give me the heads up. Just shoot me even an email. You got my email. Shoot me an email so that very least that I can be there for you like you guys are always there for me. And I appreciate you guys like that, right? But I was talking to my brother-in-law the other day, and we were sitting on the couch, and I always like chit chatting with him, right? We don't get to see each other very often. And he's like me quite a bit in certain ways. Like he does the movies, he has his own hobbies and interests. And to look at him and to know my brother in law, you wouldn't think he would do something like that. He's a very private person, very quiet man, right? But he spends a lot of time on his own too, like I do. Like he doesn't do the walks, but he loves to ride bikes. Soon as he gets home from work, he gets on his bike and he is gone, and he goes for long bike rides, and he does it for the same reason as I do when I go on my walks, right? It's just to be with himself, right? It's something that calms his system down. And me and Ian, his name's Ian, right? He's always been a very, very good friend, good friend to me, right? And I was very grateful that I got to have him in my life. But not only did I get to have him in my life, he ended up marrying my sister, right? My youngest sister. So he's part of the family, and not only part of the family, he's actually part of the bloodline now because him and my sister had my niece Ashley, right? So now for sure our two bloodlines are have joined forces that way, which I think is pretty cool, right? Yeah. I like that the way things move when it comes to history, when I was a little kid, to look up to my aunts and uncles. And then I'd say my Annie Noni, right? And her name was Leona, but when I was a kid I couldn't say Leona, right? But I could say Noni, so I used to call her Auntie Noni, and I carried that on right into my teens, right? But she wasn't even my aunt. She was my dad's aunt, right? But I still remember her to this day, right? And I'm very surprised that none of my sisters got red hair because she had fireball red hair, right? And again, it's that English and that Irish and Scottish background that we have, but genetically, we don't have any red hair in our family at all. None of the girls, right? Just um, the three of us have blonde hair, right? My hair is not even technically blonde anymore because it's a box hair color now. It's still super dark though because I quit dyeing my hair last year, and I quit dyeing my hair I think for 6 or 7 months. I says, "Oh, Cindy, act your age. You don't need to be blonde anymore." So I stopped coloring my hair, and my hair came in so dark. It still wasn't even gray. It was like a dirty dark blonde, and I went, "Oh my goodness, Cindy!" And I hadn't even seen the color of my hair since I was 16 years old. And I says, I can't bear it anymore. So I went back to coloring it blonde. And I'll keep coloring my hair blonde, I think, until my very last effort where I can do anything with my hands. And as long as I have that energy and those few extra dollars to get a hair color, I'll keep dyeing my hair. Mind you, I haven't seen a hairdresser. See, I just tie my hair in a ponytail on the usual. And also I the fact that I have curly hair, that it's not often that I have to worry about things being uneven, and it's too easy for me just to take the scissors and cut my own bangs. But yeah, I haven't seen a hairdresser in over 20 years, right? And I just said I could do a better job myself. The last experience that I had with a hairdresser, oh my goodness, my bill was over $200 to get my hair done. And all I was getting was, I wanted to grow into my gray. Thank goodness I didn't, right? I thought, oh, if I go platinum, then my hair can go silver and it'll just grow out, right? And then I won't have to worry about dark roots and stuff. Little did I know my hair was growing out dark anyway. But she did such a terrible job at doing my hair. And I'm not usually critical of people. Lots of times I'll just say, oh well, right? And I just let it go. But that was a lot of money. It was well over $200 I invested in getting my hair colored. And my hair looked absolutely awful. I went in for platinum. I wanted white hair so that my gray hair could just grow in and blend in nicely. But when she was done, it was no different color than what I do when I dye my hair with a box color. It was still yellow, right? Just like, oh my goodness, I'm never going to a hairdresser ever again. And I never went to a hairdresser ever again. Just tied up in a ponytail, right? I will go to a hairdresser eventually, right? But, in the moment when you think $200 could put a month's worth of groceries into the kitchen cupboards, right? And I think that's what I found to be so frustrating in parting with my money and something that I could have just done myself, right? But it was an experience that I learned from. It definitely was. Uh, but that was glad. Yeah, I felt like a little dummy there, and I didn't want to be rude to go, "Oh my goodness, Owen talked about his brother and I wasn't even paying attention. I didn't even know that he had a brother, but I'm glad that you had a nice visit with him. Did you, Owen? You had a nice visit? I hope you did. Hope your visit was really nice." Just coming down here. I'm on top of the comments tonight, but we have a small crew tonight. Like I said, Tammy is doing some caregiving this week, and I love that she's a caregiver. I'm surprised, but I have so many caregivers, right, that hang out on my channel. I appreciate that. I find it curious, but I do appreciate that. And it's that idea too. You get what you give in this world, right? So and it was nice that she just said, "Oh, Cindy, I'm really sorry I can't come in." I said, "Don't be sorry. You can't come in. You don't have to check in with me, right? But I'm glad you did. That way I don't have to worry because she's so consistent. Not only is she here on Sunday nights with us now, right? She's fairly new. She's only been with us for a few months now, right? But she has been into almost every single one of my videos, every single one of my live shows, going back like 15 years, right? She has to remind me how old some of these videos are. And then when she comments on them sometimes, I go back into the video and go, oh, I haven't seen this one for a long time. And then I go back and watch it and I go, oh, I was such a terrible filmer when I was on YouTube, right? I just did such a terrible job. How did I get 100,000 views on this video? Because it was so terrible. But then again, you got to think that's history, right? That's there for prosperity because those houses that I explored, they're not around anymore, you guys. They are definitely for sure on the ground, right? Because they were so old. And when I was filming at that time, the very best quality that you could get was the high definition. And the high definition I don't even think was 720 at that time. It was like 420p, right? And that was considered high definition. It was just all fuzzy and stuff, right? And I wasn't even very good. I didn't know about 1080p or horizontal or vertical. I used to mix them all up all the time, right? Especially when I was taking my photographs and stuff that I wasn't very good at filming at all. And especially, I said, where is it? Oh, I put it over. Where is it? I have a hard drive that I put all my old content on, like everything from the very beginning of when I started on YouTube, all my urban explorers and everything. I put it onto a hard drive. Makes me curious as to here it is. I put it all on this hard drive and it says that it works, but I cannot find the program on my computer anywheres. It won't let me open it up in any way. So I'm waiting for my nephew to go up and visit him for a little bit and see if he can get those videos off. Now, I'm not sure whether I can use that content, right? Because at that time when I was editing my videos, I wasn't a very good editor either. I didn't know how to eliminate the wind noise, right? Nobody was using microphones or anything at that time, right? It was probably a little while afterwards that some of the big YouTubers started using the microphones and stuff on their adventures. But with mine, you could hear the wind going. You couldn't even hear me talking. But I didn't know how to eliminate that terrible sound of the wind. So all I would do is I would cut the video. And a lot of the video was really, really good. And I had no idea how to put voice over it, like to turn the sound right off and then just talk and just add the talking over. And I could have done that, but I never did. And so I never did the voiceover. And it's only, oh, probably in the past 5 or 6 years that I learned how to put music in. So, and then to put it on mute and then just fill that space up with just music. And I thought, oh my goodness, if I can get in here and get that video out of here, that maybe I could make new videos out of some of that old content. And even though the quality is not going to be great, um, it'll be a lot better. And a lot of that footage that I couldn't use because I didn't know how to fix it, that I can fix it now by doing voiceover and adding the music. And then those explorers would be a lot more interesting because I did a lot of that, just cutting the whole footage out. Just say, oh, I can't use this. And I would cut like 10 or 15 minutes out of an explore and then just jump into something else. But if I can get in that there, you guys, I just might make, I don't know, a documentary style of the story that played out in me becoming a YouTube creator because I have been doing YouTube for a very long time, right? I am a small YouTube channel, but I have been at this now. This is my 14th year anniversary coming up this year. 14 years. That's pretty crazy. We'll have to do something special for the 15-year anniversary, right? That's a long time to be on a YouTube channel. And I've been monetized right from the very beginning because my channel took off right from the start and I was managed to get monetized. So I've been monetized that entire time. Not getting rich on it or anything, but it's something that I take pride in the fact that I've never discredited YouTube or Google in that they never felt that it was necessary for me to have that taken away from me, which was kind of nice. It's something I really appreciate. Sometimes it's just in not giving up, right? Just in showing up, and in just in showing up, you get to learn to be consistent, and because you become consistent, you get to be a little bit better at what you do, a little bit more comfortable in what you're doing, and a little bit more creative in how you stick around, right? Because if there's nothing else that I can say about myself, I managed to stick around, didn't I? Okay. Um, no news about cortisone shots or surgery. The health system here is very slow. I'm going to get after people tomorrow since I haven't been called as I told I would be. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for one more test. I have one more. Oh, no, I have two more tests to do. My doctor's putting me through the ringer. But she wants me to have a clear picture of where I am at. And, I've gone and done all the tests so far that she's wanted me to do. And she just phones me. She doesn't call me into the office or anything. She just gives me a phone call. She tells me how the blood tests are going, how the mammograms are going, like whatever I'm doing. We just have a discussion over the phone with that. And I appreciate that I don't have to go into the office. But then again, that's the day and age that we live in, that we can use our technology, right? And be able to have these conversations. And I would think that if she's not calling me into the office, then it can't be such bad news. I have this idea. No news is good news. But I still have a couple of tests to go. And I'll let you guys know how those go as the results go in. So far, the blood was all good, except for the fact that my iron was really low. So I'm on a month and a half of iron every single day. And oh my goodness, that bowl that burns a hole in my stomach every time I take one of those iron pills, and I cut it up into four little pieces so it digests really fast. And I always take it with a vitamin C because it tastes like citrus and stuff. And thinking it's going to help to make it digest a little bit faster, but it doesn't. I still have about another 3 weeks to go of iron. And it's not fun, but I'm doing it because I have to. It's important for me to take care of my good health, right? I went for a mammogram. It's only the second one that I've had. So I should be having those every few years, but I don't. I feel normal, and then I think, oh, I'm superwoman. I'm never going to get sick, never going to have issues, and that's not a good attitude to have, especially when I'm online and I'm supposed to be that example and evidence for other people. That it's important for me, especially I live in Canada and our healthcare system is taken care of. So there's no excuse not to make sure that I have these tests done. But let me know when you hear Andrew, when you're going in. It probably, right, it's going to take months and months, right? Don't stir yourself up mentally over it, right? Not all of us are big fans of doctors and surgeons and hospitals and stuff, right? Very few of us. Unless you're my sister Alice and she's excited to go in so she can have jello and pudding and be taken care of. She likes it. Okay. Um, it's not clear from the information on the dust jacket, but Leo Bata's content may be available online. I'm going to check into it, Andrew. I wrote his name. I wrote his name down here in my notes, and I'm going to check in on it. Let me come down here and do do do. But I'm glad your mom's doing good, Owen. I'm really good. Um, and I'm glad that you got to have some relaxed time for yourself to take care of yourself. Um, okay, you guys. Anymore, I just get a crew cut a few times a year. My dad liked the crew cuts too. Just say, shave it all off, start all over again. Okay, you guys, that's going to be it for me tonight. I'm going to sit here, put my computer lid down, get rid of my little stand here, and just let the air conditioner blast on me and appreciate that temperature is going to go down. See if it's under 30 yet. Oh my goodness, it's already down to 27 Celsius. So it's in the low 90s right now. So it's going to make for a nice evening tonight to be able to sleep really good. But I've been sleeping through the night the past week or so, but I'm going to attribute that to the iron pills. It's been making it so that I have been having those issues of getting up in the middle of the night. Okay, you guys. That's all I've got for you tonight. You guys want to hang out with me during the week, right? I'll be here Monday to Friday with What's My Good Cheer. If not, I'll be back on Sunday. I appreciate that you guys gave me all those thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. You guys have a great night. I hope that smoke is not too bad this week. It's going to cool off, I suspect, in the next few days, for Owen and Andrew because you guys usually get that weather after we get it after a couple of days. So I hope it cools off nicely for you, but it's going to get hot right after that. We're going right back into it. So enjoy it while you can. Okay, you guys, have a great night. And we'll see you next week.